She left the pink towel on the banister again. It shouldn't matter. It's a towel. But the thing is, we don't own a pink towel. I stood there for a solid 3 minutes, just staring at it, dripping water onto the stairs. My brain refused to process it. Like maybe, if I stared long enough, it would vanish. Or turn white. Or explain itself. It didn't. Instead, it hung there, smug and saturated, like a drunk guest who refused to leave. She was asleep when I found it. Or pretending to be. Laying perfectly still on top of the sheets, hair spread across the pillow like a commercial. I watched her for a while, trying to decide whether I felt more confused or nauseous. We had a deal. That was the part gnawing at me the most. Not the betrayal. Though yeah, that was its own special kind of hell. But the deal. We said no lies. If one of us ever wanted out, we'd say it. Plain. Human. No drama. No side doors. Just speak and leave. But instead a towel. My first instinct was to check the hamper, which is deranged, I know. But I did it. Opened it like a psycho detective in a crime show. Found a shirt I didn't recognize. Not his. Hers. New. Tight. Still smelled like some kind of cologne that made my throat close. I stood in the hallway with the towel in one hand and her shirt in the other, and I felt like the punchline of a joke no one told me. And here's where it gets worse. I wasn't shocked. Not really. Somewhere inside me, I think I knew. Not just about that night, but about the slow crawl toward it. The flirtations she didn't bother hiding. The phone calls taken in the car. The silence during dinner. The soft, careful way she started applying makeup again before girls' night. I wasn't stupid. I was just trying really hard to be. But the pink towel? That was too much. That was her saying, I don't care if you notice. That was her handing me a lit match and daring me to burn it all down. And the part that really shattered me? I think I still loved her. I still loved the person who wiped off her makeup at night with my old t-shirts. The one who used to hum while brushing her teeth. The one who'd cry during movie trailers. Not even the movie, the trailers. So no, I didn't scream. I didn't throw anything. I folded the pink towel, hung it neatly on the bathroom rack, and sat in the kitchen, waiting for her to wake up. She came downstairs just after 9 a.m., wearing the same shirt she wore to bed. The one with a small tear under the sleeve she swore she'd throw out months ago. I heard her coming. Not just her footsteps, but the way she exhaled as she walked, like every step was a decision. I sat at the kitchen table pretending to scroll through my phone, though my eyes hadn't focused on a single word in 15 minutes. The pink towel was gone from the banister. She'd removed it while I was in the shower. Not a word about it. No smirk, no apology, no explanation. Just gone, like it never happened. She didn't say good morning. She walked to the sink and filled a glass of water, sipping it while staring out the window like she was waiting for something. A sound. A signal. Maybe guilt. Or maybe just the neighbor's dog to start barking so she wouldn't have to speak. I don't know. I made her coffee anyway. Not because I forgave her. Not even because I wanted to keep up the illusion. I just needed to see if she'd drink it. If her hands would shake. If she'd avoid eye contact. She took it without a word and sat down across from me like everything was fine. Like our marriage hadn't cracked in half, while we both silently agreed not to look at the pieces. She checked her phone, thumb tapping with controlled urgency. Then she smiled, but not at me. At the screen. A flicker of real joy that lasted half a second before she swallowed it and replaced it with silence. I asked her, flatly, where she'd been last night. She shrugged, not even pretending to put effort into a lie. You already know. That's what she said. For words. Soft. Flat. Like she was ordering from a menu. I asked, was it Everett again? She looked at me, tilted her head a bit, then gave me that tiny, infuriating smile people use when they're hiding behind it. Would it be better if it wasn't? That answer broke something quiet inside me. Not because of what it meant, but because of how calm she was when she said it. Like she'd rehearsed it. Like this entire moment had already played out in her head, and I was just reading lines from a part she'd already cast me in. She took a sip of coffee. No shaking hands. No guilt. No apology. Just steam rising from her mug while I tried to remember how we got here. I could have left. I should have. But instead, I asked, did it mean anything? She looked me dead in the eyes and said, it meant I wanted you to hurt. That's when I realized she wasn't sorry. Not even a little. She wanted me to feel less. She wanted to level the playing field for every time I forgot to listen, every time I missed the subtle signs, every time I chose silence over confrontation. This wasn't about sex. This was about revenge. And the worst part? I still wasn't ready to leave. That night, she left the door unlocked. I know, because I checked it 3 times. The deadbolt was untouched, the knob turned with no resistance. And for some reason, that terrified me more than anything else she'd done. It wasn't an oversight. She never forgets. Callie's the kind of person who sets calendar reminders for trash day and refolds towels if the edges don't match. Leaving the door unlocked wasn't a mistake. It was a message. I just didn't know what it meant yet. I didn't sleep. Again, not even a little. I lay in bed with my eyes open, listening to her breath, soft, rhythmic, like a metronome ticking away everything we used to be. At one point, she shifted in her sleep and murmured a name I couldn't quite make out. I wanted it to be mine. God, I prayed it was mine. But it wasn't. I could tell by the way my stomach dropped. It sounded like Ev, just the first syllable, swallowed halfway through like her subconscious didn't have the courage to say the rest. Around 3 a.m., I got up and walked into the kitchen. The coffee mug from earlier was still in the sink. Lipstick smear on the rim. Same color she used on our wedding day. Terracotta rose, I think it was called. Funny what you remember when your world is caving in. I stared at it like it could give me answers. And then, without really thinking, I opened the drawer, took out one of the steak knives, and pressed the tip against my thumb. Just enough to feel it. Not to hurt myself. Not really. I just needed something real. Something sharp to remind me that I was awake and not trapped in some purgatory where love rots while everyone pretends not to smell it. When the sun finally rose, she was already dressed. Hair brushed, eyes bright. Not a single trace of the storm she'd left inside me. She asked if I wanted anything from the bakery near her office. I said no. She smiled, kissed my cheek, and left. Just like that. Like we were still playing house. Like we weren't quietly gutting each other every time we spoke. I followed her. Not on purpose. At least, that's what I told myself. I told myself I was just going to work early. I told myself I was just curious. But I parked 2 blocks away from her office and waited. Watched her walk inside. Waited some more. And then, right when I was about to leave, right when I convinced myself I was being ridiculous, he showed up. Everett. Too tall, too confident, too smooth. Wearing a scarf, for God's sake. In May. She came back outside when he arrived. I thought it was coincidence. Maybe she forgot something in her car. But no. She smiled when she saw him. She waved like a schoolgirl. Then, without hesitation, she hugged him. Tight. Familiar. Too long for coworkers. Way too long for anyone who claimed it was a mistake. I started shaking. Not out of rage, out of relief. Because finally, it wasn't in my head. Finally, I wasn't just the jealous husband with too much time to think. She had lied. She was cheating. And I had seen it with my own eyes. I should have felt vindicated. But all I felt was small. So damn small. Because, even with the proof, I still wasn't ready to let her go. The day after I followed her, I did something I haven't told anyone. I didn't even know I was going to do it until I was already halfway there. I took a half day from work, told my boss I had a dentist appointment, which, to be fair, is almost true. The pain in my chest had started to feel like a rotten tooth, something festering under the surface. But instead of going to any doctor, I drove to the self-storage facility she rented last fall when we were decluttering the guest room. I still had the spare key on my old car ring. She never asked for it back. Maybe she forgot. Maybe she didn't think I'd care. When I pulled up, my hands were sweating so badly I had to wipe them on my jeans just to unlock the damn padlock. It clicked open like it had been waiting for me. Inside was not what I expected. No seasonal clothes. No baby stuff from her sister. No boxes labeled Christmas decor or college notes. Just one folding chair, a freestanding mirror, and a box of old Polaroids. That's it. That's all. I stood there, not breathing, because I was afraid if I breathed, something would move. The kind of quiet in that unit didn't feel like normal silence. It felt like a secret waiting to bite. The box of Polaroids was open. I didn't want to look. I had to look. They weren't pictures of Everett. Not directly. They were pictures of her. All of them. Different clothes, different makeup, different moods, but always her. Alone. Sometimes blurry. Sometimes intentionally out of focus, like the camera wasn't the point. Somewhere in that shirt she wore the night she came home late. Others in outfits I'd never seen before. And then I found the one that made my throat close. She was sitting on that chair. The one right in front of me now. Wearing nothing but a long beige coat, legs crossed, head tilted, holding a phone in one hand and a cigarette in the other. She doesn't smoke. Hasn't since college. She said the smell makes her gag. But in that photo, she looked comfortable. And then I noticed the mirror. It was angled. Not toward her. Toward the chair. And in the very bottom edge of one photo, almost invisible, but not quite, was the reflection of someone else's shoe. A man's. Black. Polished. Pointed toe. I dropped the whole box. Didn't even mean to. The sound it made was louder than it should have been, like the walls of that unit had been holding their breath too. I backed out slowly, locked it up again, and sat in my car with my hands gripping the wheel so tightly I thought I'd snap it off. I didn't cry. I didn't rage. I just sat there, watching the slow crawl of traffic through the chain-link fence in front of me, trying to understand who the hell I had married, and how long she'd been living a life behind my back. It wasn't the cheating that broke me. It was the planning, the quiet, careful effort she put into hiding this other life. The poses, the photos, the mirror, the way it all felt rehearsed, like she'd been doing it for months, maybe years, and never once slipped. Never once let me see behind the curtain. Until now. And the worst part? She still came home that night with a loaf of sourdough and asked if I wanted soup. Like I was just another piece of background furniture in a house she'd already moved out of emotionally. I said yes. Because what else could I say? There's a drawer in our hallway that neither of us opens anymore. It used to hold batteries and light bulbs, maybe an old key or two. But now it holds something else entirely, silence. That drawer became sacred after that Thursday. The one she won't mention. The one I pretend I forgot. We've never said it out loud, but we both know. Whatever we used to be ended that night. I started cataloging things. Not for evidence. For survival. I wrote down how many times she looked at her phone during dinner. How many times she left the house without saying where. I counted how many seconds she paused before answering simple questions, like she was editing something before speaking. I started treating our marriage like a crime scene. Every gesture, every sentence, a potential clue. Last week, she brought home flowers. Orange tulips. My favorite. Not hers. She hates tulips. Says they look like mouths that never finish a sentence. And yet, there they were, wrapped in butcher paper on the kitchen counter. They were on sale, she said. That was her entire explanation. I almost laughed. Not because it was funny, but because it was so transparent. She was trying to bury something. Trying to paint over the blood with color. She started playing music in the mornings again. Real loud. Jazz. The dissonant, chaotic kind. The kind that makes you feel like you're being followed. I think it was her way of blocking me out. Of making sure I wouldn't hear any more names in her sleep. She even started humming to herself again. That fake, airy kind of hum that says, "Look how relaxed I am. I'm fine. Everything's fine." But she wasn't. One night, I watched her standing in the bathroom, brushing her hair. She didn't know I was there. The mirror caught her reflection at a slant, and for a second, she looked like a stranger wearing her skin. Her smile was crooked, not forced, trained. And the way she looked at herself, it wasn't vanity. It was calculation. Like she was rehearsing a face she needed me to believe. I asked her, the next morning, what she'd be doing Thursday night. She froze for just a second. A crack in her perfect routine. Then, dinner with Clara. You remember Clara? I don't. She left the house wearing a black dress I hadn't seen in years. The one she wore the night I proposed. I remember it because of the rip in the sleeve she sewed herself. But now the rip was gone. Replaced. Healed. Like the dress had moved on without me. I followed her again. I know I shouldn't have. I know it makes me look pathetic. But I had to know. She didn't go to Clara's. She didn't even stay in our city. She drove nearly an hour out of town. To a small restaurant near the lake. I stayed in my car, parked half a block down, and watched her walk inside. I was shaking so badly I spilled coffee on my lap without noticing. She met a man there. Not Everett. Someone older. Balding. Wearing a watch that probably cost more than our mortgage. She hugged him. Twice. They sat in a corner booth and talked for over 2 hours. She laughed. Real, from-the-gut laughter. The kind I hadn't heard from her in years. And then, the part that cracked me open. She took his hand across the table. Held it. Rubbed her thumb across his knuckles like she was trying to memorize them. She looked happy. Not guilty. Not scared. Happy. I drove home before they finished dinner. I couldn't take it anymore. I didn't want to see the goodbye. I didn't want to see how many times she kissed him before letting go. I just went home. Sat in our bedroom. stared at the tulips until they started to wilt. She got back late, slipped into bed without a word, didn't even change her clothes. Her hair still smelled like wood smoke and red wine. I stared at the ceiling until morning. We don't talk about Thursdays now, and I'm starting to wonder if I ever really knew her, or if I've been in love with a mask this entire time. 3 days after the dinner by the lake, she left her laptop open. That never happens. She's obsessive about closing everything, tabs, windows, conversations. But not this time. Maybe she was rushing. Maybe she wanted me to see. I'll never know. But there it was, glowing on the dining room table when I came in from the garage. Her inbox. The subject line read, "Just in case, delete after watching." My stomach dropped before I even clicked it. It was a video file, an MP4, sent from a name I didn't recognize. I don't know what I expected. Maybe another set of photos. Maybe a video of them at dinner, kissing in public like strangers with nothing to lose. But it wasn't that. It was her, in the storage unit, sitting in that same chair, facing the mirror, alone. She wasn't speaking, but her lips were moving, and she was looking directly into the mirror, like she thought it was a camera, like she knew someone would be watching. Her hair was up. Her makeup was smudged. She looked angry, not the explosive kind, the kind that's cold and calculated, focused. I turned up the volume, but there was no sound, just her mouthing words and staring into her own reflection like she hated it. Then she got up, walked out of frame, and the camera tilted, slightly, just for a second, like someone bumped it from behind. That's when I paused it, because I saw something I wasn't supposed to. In the corner of the mirror, for barely a single frame, was my face. It wasn't live, obviously, but I was there, in the reflection, standing in the hallway of our house, behind her, watching the screen, which meant whoever recorded her used our mirror from our bedroom. The storage unit had the same mirror, yes, but this angle, this lighting, this was from our home. I rewound it 5 times just to be sure, and there I was, blurry, but unmistakable. My hand started shaking so badly I knocked over a glass of water. The crash was deafening. She came in, saw the mess, and didn't even blink. Just said, "Did you cut yourself?" I said no. She nodded and walked away. That was it. That night, I tore our bedroom apart. I flipped the mattress, checked the vents, unscrewed the light fixtures. I looked inside every drawer, behind every photo frame, even inside the goddamn smoke detector. Nothing. No camera. No lens. No sign of how, or when, that footage had been taken. And yet, somehow it existed. I started thinking about the things I'd said in that room. The nights I broke down. The mornings I sat on the edge of the bed with my head in my hands. Had she been watching me? Had he? That night, I locked the bedroom door. She didn't ask why. She just slept in the guest room like it was routine, like she'd been expecting it. The next morning, she made me tea. Not coffee. Tea. Chamomile. With honey. I don't drink tea. I've told her that for years. But she made it anyway, set it gently beside my hand like she was offering peace. Or penance. Or poison. I didn't touch it. I left the house without saying a word. Drove aimlessly for hours, circling places we used to go, bookstores, sandwich shops, that little hiking trail behind the old church. All of it felt like a memory from someone else's life. A life I had borrowed but never owned. I kept asking myself the same question. What does she want from me now? Because she wasn't trying to hide anything anymore. The cheating, the lies, the recording, none of it was subtle. This wasn't secrecy. It was theater. Something she wanted me to witness, to feel. And it worked. God help me, it worked. The guest room smells like lavender now. That's new. We've never used anything scented in there before. Just plain detergent, maybe the occasional faint trace of dust from the bookshelves. But not anymore. Now it smells like lavender. Heavy, sweet, suffocating. I smelled it the moment I walked past her closed door. She'd been sleeping in there for over a week by that point. Not because of a fight, not because of a decision. It just happened. One night she didn't come to bed, and I didn't ask why. And then it became normal. She started using that room like it was her own apartment. Lights on late. Door always closed. Music filtering through sometimes, but muffled. Just enough to remind me she was alive and breathing and fully out of reach. I almost knocked once. I stood there with my hand raised, listening to her laugh through the wall. Not with me. Never with me. It was around midnight when I heard the second voice. A man's. Low, careful. I couldn't make out the words, just the rhythm. A conversation, not a phone call. The kind of speaking people do when they're leaning in close. I pressed my ear to the door. I don't care how pathetic that sounds. I had to know. But it was too quiet, too deliberate. They knew I was home. They wanted me to hear enough. When the silence returned, I stood outside her door for 10 minutes, waiting for her to open it. She didn't. So I walked away. In the morning, there was no sign of him. No second shoes. No jacket. No used glass in the sink. Only the scent of lavender, stronger than ever, pouring down the hallway like she'd sprayed it just to erase the air he left behind. She was already in the kitchen, eating yogurt like it was any other day. Hair tied up. Calm. Serene. When she saw me, she smiled like nothing had happened. I asked her directly, "Was someone here last night?" She blinked, slow and deliberate. Then she nodded. "Yes." "Who?" I asked. She scraped the bottom of the yogurt cup with her spoon, staring at it like it held the answer. "Someone who makes me feel seen." I didn't move. I didn't breathe. I just stared at her, trying to reconcile the woman in front of me with the girl I married 7 years ago in a courthouse with broken air conditioning and a bouquet made of wildflowers. "You're not even trying to lie anymore," I said. She looked up then, really looked at me. And in that moment, I swear to God, she looked sad. Not guilty, not ashamed, just tired. "Would you believe me if I did?" I didn't answer. She stood up, rinsed her spoon, and walked past me toward the hallway. Before she disappeared around the corner, she said something I'll never forget. "You stopped noticing me years ago. All I did was catch up." The rest of the day, I felt like a ghost. I went through the motions, answered emails, folded laundry, even vacuumed. But I wasn't in my body. I was somewhere else, drifting through memory, trying to find the exact moment she slipped away. Was it the year she got promoted and I forgot to celebrate? Was it the night I fell asleep during her story about her father's surgery? Was it the morning I asked her to text less during work because it messed with my focus? I don't know. Maybe it wasn't one moment. Maybe it was 1,000 tiny ones. But now the damage is done, and the house I live in is no longer mine. It belongs to her silence, to her perfume, to her carefully curated escape. And me? I'm just another object she's outgrown, but hasn't gotten around to discarding yet. It happened on a Tuesday. No symbolism, no anniversary, no poetic setup. Just a plain Tuesday with overcast skies and that faint smell of impending rain. She was gone when I woke up, left early for work, or maybe didn't come home at all. I didn't check. I didn't care. What mattered was this. The silence wasn't heavy anymore. It was spacious. For the first time in weeks, I opened the windows. Not just one, but all of them. Every room. I wanted the air to move, to shake the dust out of the corners where the echoes of old fights used to sit. I let the curtains billow like they were taking a breath for me. And I stood there for a long time, barefoot, holding a mug of coffee I actually remembered to drink while it was still hot. That's when I realized something had shifted, not outside, but in me. It wasn't some grand epiphany. No thunderclap. No, I deserve better speech screamed into the mirror. Just a quiet acknowledgement that I had been living like a prisoner with the key in my own pocket. Waiting for her to notice me again. Waiting for her to choose me again. And she wasn't going to. Not because she was cruel, but because she had already rewritten the story without me in it. And I finally, stopped trying to edit myself back in. That afternoon, I packed a single suitcase. I didn't take everything, just what mattered. A few books, my father's watch, the hoodie I lived in during lockdown that still smelled like popcorn and comfort. I left her a note. Nothing dramatic, just a folded square of paper on the kitchen table. It said, "You were right. I stopped seeing you, but I've started seeing myself again. I hope we both find whatever it is we thought we lost." I didn't cry when I closed the door behind me. I didn't look back. I walked down the steps, past the garden she hadn't watered in months, and got into my car. I didn't know where I was going yet, but for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel lost. I felt free. And as I drove away, a light drizzle began tapping against the windshield, soft and steady. I turned the radio on, rolled the window down, and let the air hit my face. Somewhere between the city and the exit sign, I smiled. Not because it didn't hurt, but because I knew it wouldn't hurt forever.